We're here with Brian Johnson, and he's the founder of Well Told. And this is just a great founder success story when it comes to the CPG space, as well as direct to consumer and then wholesale. And there's lots of nuances in Brian's story that I've been talking to him about, which I thought would be fantastic. And thankfully, Brian has agreed and wants to help other founders by sharing his journey and his insights, his wisdom, his advice. And so I'd like to welcome Brian, say thank you so much for doing this. And start off, Brian, how about you introduce yourself and tell us what is Well Told?
Great. Thanks very much for the intro, Ed. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to sharing my story and helping others if I can. So I founded Well Told in 2009 as I was still working my day job. And when I started it, it was a way for me to just explore product design in the consumer space and to be creative and have a fun side project. So for the beginning few years, it was really testing different products, things that I wanted to make and enjoyed and was passionate about. And then as I kept the business going, I saw there was a space for us to grow into a larger business and for it to be my full-time endeavor. So in 2012, I had two college friends join me, also part-time. And they were key because one was a financial background, so he could come in and handle my financial aspects of the business, which I was not as skilled at as he was. And the other was more of a creative and could help me with design and the marketing side of the business to be able to develop the brand voice a bit more. So the Well Told, as far as the products are, we are a personalized gifts company. And we focus on highly personalized products that are more than just a monogram or putting your name on a product. It's a more of a sentimental design and a way to show somebody's personal passions and life story on an everyday product. So as you can see on the website, if you're looking at the video, our first big successful product was our Maps glassware. And specifically the City Map Rocks glass. And in the beginning, I was staying up till 2 a.m, hand drawing all these maps myself. And as we saw more and more requests and interests come in, we realized that in order to scale this, we had to figure out a way to automate the artwork creation that would allow people to create products specific to their location or places that they'd been.
Wait, now let me interrupt for a second because you said something that you haven't told me before, which I think is fantastic. So in the beginning, you were doing things manually. So take me all the way back to when you started this. So, your MVP, if you will, when you started testing it, what was sort of the first thing that you came out into the market with?
So the very first thing way back in the beginning in 2009, I was making, I would have a contractor that could do laser cutting of metal, and I had stainless steel metal picture frames. I had a welder that would make table bases for me, and I would make reclaimed wood tops, and then assemble and deliver those. I did a lot of things. I even did the whole inside counter and shelving storage system for a wine store in South Boston. And really was kind of all over the place. And part of the transition to glassware was furniture was really big and expensive to deliver and handle logistically, and I needed something smaller. And I also realized that I needed something that I could outsource the fulfillment to and the production if it was going to be at scale. So a lot of the artwork I was creating by hand, I found a couple of trusted manufacturing partners to produce the finished products after I would go through prototyping. And then one of the first things to outsource was a warehousing solution to be able to make and hold all these things. And there's fun early stories of me packaging at 2 a.m. in my tiny little condo that made it clear that that had to happen.
Okay, so I can imagine all the stories. And I think this is a really great lesson for founders in any space is what you start off as your MVP. You didn't even start off in glassware. It starts to become an iterative process. So you were working with frames and furniture. This is not cutting it, but you stuck with it. Then you figure out glassware. You did things manually, so you didn't have to build. And it's what a lot of founders do is I have to build everything and automate everything. No, you went out and validated the market, and you put out. You drew by hand. You did it manually, but then you figured out, okay, how do I fulfill and all those things. What was the tipping point for you? You had an understanding, okay, we have to kind of start automating this and outsourcing. What really was that moment where you said, we've got it? You said you had a breakthrough product. I'm thinking it's product market fit. Like, tell us about that moment.
So there's two moments that stick out. One is earlier in the lifetime, and there was a bottle opener that I had designed that looked like a big pi symbol, the mathematic 3.14 pi. And I went on a flash sale that had found me through that product, and it was launching over the weekend when my now wife, then girlfriend, were on vacation up in Acadia National Park. So we were out of cell phone service when this was happening for a couple of days, came into town to grab dinner, and I looked at my phone and just saw sales were just coming in. I think in about 24 hours, we had 600 sales.
Wow.
And at the time, I was still kind of hand to mouth with my production. So I didn't have any of this pre-produced. I had my manufacturing partners poised and ready to make them. And so I shot off an email to them with the order and had a rapid delivery to my house so I could then package them at 2 a.m. and ship them all out. So that was the first, I think, realization that the product type was received well. It was also at a time when flash sale sites and a lot of those in e-commerce were relatively new, and there was a lot more interest in those. So there is a bit of timing, I think, just in the evolution of the marketplace that had a big impact on it. But then as we evolved, I think a year and a half later, we came out with the City Map Rocks Glass, and another flash sale site that we partnered with put in an order for, actually it was for a subscription box company. And they, put in an order for 6,000 glasses.
Wow.
And that was, at the time, it was our biggest order, and we were certain that would set us up with the finances for years to come. Which, looking back now, is kind of makes us laugh, but that was, I think, a big milestone with the two partners in place and the new product, that there was appetite for it.
Okay, you are creating products and you got it out there, and you didn't even try to do like e-commerce and advertise direct. You just found a channel, these flash sites, put it out there and said, let's see what happens. Obviously there's a risk, taking a bit of a gamble, you're putting yourself out there, but bang, you get market validation. And then the orders start coming in, and I'm going to assume that you're reinvesting into the business. So then talk to us about, you said, this is going to set up for us with the finances for the rest of the business, but you didn't take any external funding. You didn't go out for a fundraise. You didn't find investors. So what's the financial configuration? How did you make it all work?
So yes, that's all true. And early on, we had an Etsy shop presence and our own Shopify website that were low lift. I did all the coding. I did all the product listing creations myself. We were developing and continuing to improve the brand voice and the brand story. And the those initial sales, what we also saw was then an organic increase in site traffic. So we saw, hey, they're finding us, they're coming to visit our site. So we knew without a huge marketing spend that kind of in PR, if you will, we could drive traffic to the site and people were interested in converting. Part of the model that we set up was drop ship product. So the majority of the products we pre-produced and warehoused and then shipped, but then we did have a good part of the business that was starting to come into drop ship. So it would be make on demand and ship. So our inventory costs were low. And again, we could almost, we would get the sale before we made and shipped the product. And so that let us organically grow without the need for a huge outside investment. By nature, that made the growth slower, which at the time we were all still working our jobs. So
Wow.
it was doable. But then as the business grew and started getting bigger, it became very apparent that we couldn't do both for our own mental space, but also to be fair to the companies we were working with.
Sure.
So between 2015 and 2017, we all went full time and brought on additional people to the team.
And you just bootstrapped. Everybody chipped in. You reinvested. You went lean and mean. Obviously, it's a big leap to go from being employed and running this, but you had enough finances and enough revenue where you took that leap.
Yep, we all took a big pay cut from our day jobs.
Sure.
But there was a short-term line of sight to being able to at least make what we were making previously. But the mindset also was reinvesting in the business to make sure that we could capitalize it and not take that debt. And by doing that, we could see if we were seeing 25 to 50% year-over-year growth in the business, the value of our money being in there and having that growth was way better than we could do in any other investment. So it was definitely a long play, and we were all able to personally make it fit for those few years where we had to kind of take a pay cut.
And you had mentioned earlier while we were talking about the advantages of not taking an investor who wanted a certain type of growth. What was that like? What was in your mind?
A couple of the big things is we really wanted to own our brand and the direction that we took the company. And we were nervous with an outside investor coming in that we would lose a lot of that power and control. And it came though at the sacrifice of the speed that we could grow and some of the opportunities that we knew if we had like a big marketing budget that would show a lot of growth. And it was a long play. So we realized we had to be patient to get to that point. Also, just based off of the specific products we had, the profitability of them was not as large as some other products out there, especially being able to make one piece of glass and ship it and have the price point be something that people wanted. It inherently just made that profit a bit lower than some products out there. So I think for us, we really wanted to create a long-lasting brand that we knew could ride us through retirement and take us, if it took 20 years to develop and mature, we knew that would be long-standing also. And that was a huge part of the focus of keeping it bootstrapped so we could maintain that growth and the brand voice.
Okay. Without getting into any confidential information, how are you doing as far as revenue? What's the business growth been like?
It's been good. We just last year we broke $5 million, and we're on our way to breaking 10 in a few years here. And we had seen kind of between 30 and 50% year-over-year growth for a number of years to get to that point. We've been on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list for 3 years in a row. And we're excited to keep building the size of the business, both through channel expansion, new wholesale partners, and expanding our product offering to existing customers.
All right. Appreciate you sharing that. So let's talk about some advice that you would have. Let me set this up. So we have a lot of CPG founders out there who have ideas for products. And then we have also founders that want to go D2C, or they're trying to figure out the model. Obviously, you have done a large portion of that. Actually, before we get in that, what is the split between DTC and wholesale? Like, what are your channels like right now, and how does that configure into your business?
Sure. So we really focused our start on being mostly D2C with a few key wholesale partners. So we were split about 70 or 80% direct to consumer and the remaining wholesale. And as we're growing the business, that's starting to shift, and we expect that to swing the other way and be majority of wholesale sales. The nice thing I think for us was when we chose to do D2C focused in the beginning, it allowed us to refine the product offering, test it out, and then once we really knew the system well, then we could open up to the wholesale channels and knew that operationally we could handle it and profit from it, and also it would be a good fit for their buyers and their stores that they were selling.
Well, not only that, going D2C first creates a degree of brand awareness, market validation. So then the wholesalers say, wait a second, we need to get in on some of this action and start selling. And that, I think that's
Yep.
a really important thing, because, well, let me ask you, like, how long is that sales cycle to get into a wholesale channel for you?
I mean, it's longer than the direct to consumer. And we have ours broken down. So we have our what we call kind of brick and mortar gift shops, and then the larger wholesale partners. To get into one of the larger wholesale partners can be really long. You have to have the conversation, you have to go through their buyers, you have to convince them that your product is going to sell. And some of them just already have a product that's fit into maybe what you're doing. So that's definitely a long cycle to get in there. And the smaller shops, it's really about how you're going to access them and how you're going to onboard those hundreds of accounts. And there are, new marketplaces now that kind of are taking place of the standard trade show, which certainly helps short circuit that and lowers your cost to be able to, you don't have to go spend 30 or 40,000 at a trade show to show your products out there. So it varies. But I will say too, some of the original success that we had in wholesale was organic inquiries and people seeing us from the direct to consumer side and the PR that we had out there. And then they were discovering and wanting to bring us on, just like you mentioned.
Awesome playbook. Awesome playbook. I can't recommend it enough for, founders in the CPG space, and then start DTC. But guess what? Not everybody's going to be a Dollar Shave Club. You can eventually get to the place where you're wholesaling. So yep. What advice do you have? It was such great advice, and confessing that I'm not in the same space. I'm not a big CPG DTC guy, D2C guy. You talked about brand, you talked about outsourcing, you talked about knowing when to make certain decisions. Let's dole it out. What advice do you have for other founders?
All right. A lot of this is learned experience and looking back on it. So I wish I had some of this knowledge up front. I think the being okay to admit that you can't do everything, and admitting that quickly. And when I leave your ego at the door, and understand that by surrounding yourself with either outside services or people that can do it better than you will help you grow faster. My first decision to find a 3PL warehouse was like one of the best early decisions I made, because it allowed me to focus on what I did best. And for me, shipping boxes of product to customers was not what I did best. I think also having an early understanding of what you want the business to be. We kind of organically grew into understanding the split between direct to consumer and wholesale sales. And they're very different marketing and very different operations approach for both. The one thing I'll say is it benefited us hugely to have good footholds in both spaces as we went through the pandemic. There was a lot more stability in our business as we saw brick and mortar shops closing and those sales drying up nearly completely. Our e-commerce increased, and could help buoy the sales that way. So having that diversity in channel was very invaluable for us. Let's see what else. I think the decision early on also of what your growth plan is. Are you going to bootstrap this and own it yourself? You don't have to be $100 million, $1 billion unicorn to have a really successful business.
Exactly.
And that understanding and self-reflection on what you want will really help you go down the right path and make the right decisions for the company and yourself.
I want to bring up something I found fascinating when I was learning about Well Told was your tech stack. Now, so let's depart a little bit. Perfectly feasible to build a consumer products business, and it can make $50 million. Like, you're well on your way to that. But then also the technology component, I found fascinating how you approached your technology. Tell us about that. Like, what is your tech stack and how have you sort of been innovative in the way that you're going about your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, so part of this goes back to understanding kind of the product you're creating and if you're designing something to scale. And so I knew I was staying up till 2 a.m. creating artworks by hand, but I couldn't do that if I wanted to build this thing to a much larger size. So, and that's kind of how we approach all of our product development, is looking at how can we make one and how can we make millions of them, so that as we're doing design work, we're not designing ourselves out of that scale potential. So for us, part of the scale and the tech background was creating something which we could then create at an automated level. And for us, automation is a few different things. Automation may not just be computers. It could be a well-defined process of step 1, step 2, step 3. And there very well could be manual steps in there or people doing those certain steps. But as long as you understand the mechanics behind each step, the cost, the time, and how it can be scaled, that's the important part. So for us, a large part of what we do is trying to help people visualize the products before they can buy it, especially if people are D2C. Having a really good sense of what the product looks like is important. So we continue to work every year for the past 5 years on improving the visual images on our site. So one thing that we do is we've worked through a way to not need to take photography for everything, but show product previews. And we've built a number of supercomputers that are basically meant for Bitcoin mining. So multiple graphics cards, GPUs, that kind of thing that we can use to create all that imagery in an automated way. And so that when you go and you look for your small town on a product, you can see multiple images of what that product looks like. And yep. And I think to date we have, I think over 7.5 million image files that we've created. And the idea is to really show those images realistically. And so you know what you're getting. We don't want somebody to get a product and say, this isn't what I thought I was buying.
So then you didn't actually take this print an aspen glass and put it, this is all done in an automated fashion.
So we do real photography.
Sure.
We did early on, and we quickly realized if we had dozens of products and dozens plus locations, and if you actually go right there up above where it says enter your location, slide up right up, yeah, right there. Begin typing your hometown.
Okay.
You can type any town as small as reasonably small, and you'll be able to see the image previews.
Okay, so everybody, we Akron, Ohio. I was talking to a founder from there. Okay. Wow.
Yep. And so the innovations that we're working on next are, we want to show more images within this. So right now, if you click through, you'll get 3 images rotated around the glass to show all the different labels and streets, so you can clearly see that. So we're working on refining the image to be a little bit higher resolution, and then also add more frames so that we can just show more of the glass and eventually be able to have 3D videos and things like that.
3D videos. Wow, this is fantastic. I can see you getting into NFTs.
Yeah,
And
I know,
things
right?
like that. So, and this is where I think I think this is amazing. This is what gets me super pumped, because a lot of people or business owners, they would choose to scale by saying, okay, now I need to go hire a whole bunch of Brians who are going to manually draw stuff, get a huge factory going and whatnot. But you chose the technology route, not just to improve what you're doing as far as the actual product, how do you make one, how do you make millions, like you said, but also the customer experience, because you understand your customer and you're saying, how can I make it better? And you chose an automated solution, which then obviously is going to take a lot of work to set up. But once it gets there, the blue sky that you have to scale now is incredible. Like, I'm sure you've seen the effect of this when it comes to the customer experience and your sales.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for us, the personalization aspect is we want to be really personal. And if we just focused on the top 200 locations and then tried to scale the selling of those, it doesn't have the same potential as finding those individual locations or individual moments that are important to that person. And if I can show you another example of another piece of technology, if you go back to the website.
Sure.
We launched last year, a little bit over a year ago. If you go up to the top and do outdoor and adventure, and then night sky. This we launched just over a year ago, and you can pick, it's easier on the insulated products to see. So if you want to scroll down and find a tumbler there. Yep. So this is the ability to pick any location and any date or time. If you hit the customize button, and you can kind of, so Boston, that's fine. You can scroll
Let's
down
go
and
to,
click next.
can I go
You
to
can go wherever you
Ottawa,
want.
because I'm in
Sure.
Canada and all the truckers are there right now. So it's a big to do. Okay. And then
if you scroll down a little bit, you can, you can select your specific date and time. If there's a specific one.
okay, so I'm gonna go. Sorry, I'm just having a little fun actually, because it is my anniversary today.
Oh, happy
And
anniversary.
thank you. And I was married on February 16th, 2022. And so I can just hit, I must select the date to apply. What did I get wrong here? Okay.
So yeah, the year first.
So 2002. Okay. And then February 16th. Yep. Apply. Okay.
And now scroll down and hit the next button. And so that is what the night sky looked like on February 16th, 2002 in Ottawa.
Wow.
And so you can move it, and if you go down, you can see there's other options and customizations that you can play with. You can change the side of the text, the style. And then once you are happy with what you have, you can hit the next button and you'll see a 3D
no way
view of the product.
Generating artwork. And so where do you get all this data? How did you get this data into the system of the night sky?
So there are open data sets of star and constellation data available, and that's what we've figured out, that we've become pretty good at finding large data sets and being able to extract very specific pieces of it and creating artwork from it.
This is incredible.
So, yep. And it's nice because it's a consistent design as far as multiple dates. It looks similar, but everyone's unique. And we went through tons of iterations on user experience to really get this narrowed down with enough control, but not too much, because you can change the number of stars that it shows and the size of them. And so we did a lot of our design work to narrow that, to make sure that the product looks awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to point out, so your brand differentiation, or your unique value proposition, which becomes your brand, was that instead of picking some popular cities, you could have easily done this with some popular dates. and then come out with a standardized set. You decided we're going to go ultimate customizable. So you kind of, instead of competing for the main things like, the main cities like New York or what have you, you decided to say, we're going to go the long tail route. And if a customer wants to come and put their little podunk town, wherever they are, you wanted to deliver that. And nobody else is doing that. Like, in fact, a lot of the big companies probably think this is a really dumb idea. We'd never want to, take that risk. You decide to go in there. It's pretty contrarian if you think about it, because I don't think anybody's thinking you're going to make money doing this, but you set out, you did it. And that is how you're differentiated. That's what I've heard. How'd I do?
Yeah, that's good. I think, what we saw in the marketplace was a huge shift towards personalized products, but they were all not really personal.
Sure.
And it lets us protect our brand and our space by having all those capabilities. We certainly have those knockoffs that come in and have picked the big cities and outsourced overseas manufacturing, and makes us sad, but it's just the inevitable truth of the marketplace. And so we still have a huge number of those and own the market size for those larger sales, but then we keep our customers coming back by offering them everything else.
Brian, I'm telling you, if you decide to raise money, it's going to be so easy, because you go out there. The problem is personalized gifts aren't personalized, right? And your technology now, you can do so many things with this. When you start getting a 3D visualization, your stack is so valuable. We create that asset. Now, I'm not telling every CPG founder to go out and necessarily have to do this, but it is sort of on the evolutionary track if you wanted to expand and start adding a lot of value in terms of assets, process, intellectual property, everything into their CPG based and D2C model. So then, like, tell us how, I'm trying to pose the question in a real succinct way. If a founder is out there and saying, you know what, I built this product, I'm passionate about it, but it's just not getting to that product market fit, that one tipping point, what advice would you give to have founders explore different ways to really get their product punchy, their brand out there and selling and hitting that sort of moment that you did?
That's a tough one. It's, for us, it's been an evolution and a continuous conversation. And I think part of it is be patient, and reflect on the products and listen to, have conversations, not with just your friends who are going to tell you that you're doing great, but customers maybe that were unhappy or that didn't like the product. So be able to listen to everybody about the product, and keep looking for that insight, keep looking for that thing that isn't out there that can be done better, that that will set you apart from the crowd. And that doesn't need to be in this long tail, hundreds of infinite number of SKUs.
Sure.
It can be in a feature of a single product.
Exactly. That's great. All right. Well, you've told me that you're really interested in helping other founders, which I just appreciate so much. That's one of the reasons we continue to talk and explore. And obviously, I'm going to be your advisor, but you're willing to help other founders, in the same space. Tell me about that. Like, what is the invitation to other founders in our founder groups community?
Yeah, I think what I really have enjoyed is this whole process, and it's a problem solving step every way of when to outsource a certain item, how to approach brand design. One thing we didn't talk about, but when I started the business, it was a completely different name, and we went through a whole rebranding exercise. So it was needed, but it was hard. So I think it's pretty open with brands that are or businesses that are starting and looking for either advice on brand or advice on scaling and outsourcing support, and being able to navigate kind of the decisions of direct to consumer versus wholesale, or can you do both? and really just kind of being here as another someone to come to advice to. I won't be able to answer every question, so
Sure.
uh, don't expect me to do that, but I'll do what I can, and I'm happy even to just connect other people with people that I know that are in my network.
Well, I'm officially deputizing you as a community ambassador for us in this space, and just appreciate what you've done. I'm still marveling at it. I'm watching my 3D anniversary constellation, tumbler, or this just model spin right here. Everything you've done has been amazing, and I look forward to connecting you with other founders. Once again, Brian, this has been great. I totally appreciate you sharing.
Thanks very much, Ed. Yeah, appreciate the guided questions, and it was a lot of fun. So look forward to more conversations.